Love OML? Venus is for you, the lesbian internet you've been waiting for. Visit welcometovenus.com to sign up for a 7-day free trial and download the app. Use promo code Venus100.
Hi, everyone. Dr. Frankie here. And today I'm going to cover a topic that comes up often with my clients. And the question is am I ready for a relationship? Am I fully over my ex? Or am I ready? Or am I emotionally available? All these things. Sometimes we feel like the way to get over somebody is to, what do they say, get under somebody? Well, if you're really wanting to have a relationship and show up fully, and you want it to be different than your last relationships, if you felt like you weren't able to entirely emotionally available, weren't able to be fully present. And how do you know when you are ready? So that's what I'm going to cover today. And for those of you that are new to my channel, I'm a board certified sex therapist, a clinical psychologist with over 2.5 decades of experience working clinically. I've worked extensively with folks who are dealing with PTSD, complex PTSD, acute stress disorder. And, we have all been exposed to trauma to varying degrees. So it's important to really kind of understand how it manifests for us and don't look at it as a barrier, more of something like we can learn from, grow from, become stronger, more informed, and better able to navigate and manage our systems so that we can show up authentically and really, with a great understanding of ourselves, so that way we can understand others better. Because if you don't understand yourself first, you can't really show up for others fully. And I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel, hit that bell below, hit all notifications. And I usually release about 2 to 3 videos a week. And they're often focused on interpersonal struggles like attachment theory, and I talk about sex and intimacy, how to flirt, how to sex, all the good stuff that we need to know. And we may not need some of the information right now because maybe we're not ready yet to use it, but it's always helpful to kind of fill your backpack, your toolkit, to have this knowledge on hand for at any point. Maybe you could use it to help someone else. So with that in mind, please share what I impart if you think it would be helpful or empowering in some way for somebody else. And I hope you get lots from what I put out there. And thanks so much for subscribing and for all the support you all give me. And let's just jump in. 5 questions to find out if you're ready for a relationship. Relationship readiness is so important. So, have you heard, I'm not ready for a relationship? Most of us have heard that phrase before, right? Said by a would-be date or by ourselves. Maybe we've watched a friend launch themselves headfirst into a new connection only to wince and tell our friends how obvious it is they aren't actually really ready. But what does it actually mean to be ready for a relationship? And how do you know if you are or you aren't? Today, I'm going to share 5 things I recommend people ask themselves when working on this question. Are you interested in a relationship? Not everyone is ready for a relationship because not everyone wants one. If you only want casual arrangements, aren't interested in the relationship escalator, which I've talked about previously, or keep finding yourself in situationships, also talked about previously, and are perfectly happy with that, there's nothing wrong with it. What's important to you about sex and dating? What is it? What's important about sex and dating to you? What feels most exciting or appealing in your most honest moments, even if it feels vulnerable to imagine? Is it waking up to someone next to you in the middle of the night, doing the crossword puzzle in bed together on Sundays, and cuddling on the couch while watching The Bachelor? Or is it more fun, sexy nights out over cocktails and flirty texts before you get to go home alone and wake up with no one to worry about but yourself? If it's the latter, you may not be ready for a relationship, but you don't need to be if you don't want to. Are you still holding out hope for an ex or former relationship? There's a saying that the best way to get over someone is to get under someone, right? This may or may not be true, but it can be difficult to fully show up to a new relationship if you're still actively pining for someone else. It's not necessarily required to be completely over someone before dating or getting into another relationship. After all, what does that even mean? It's entirely normal to think about important relationships at least occasionally throughout your life. And of course, the conversation about moving on from exes is different from non monogamous people. The idea that you could feel sad about the end of one relationship and also still be fully committed to another isn't incompatible with ethical non monogamy. However, if you're monogamous and you find yourself still actively wishing to be with a partner, thinking about how you'd get back together with them if you could, or feel like you're settling for anyone besides them, you may not be ready to seriously date other people just yet. Are you afraid of commitment or getting hurt? Maybe the archetypal example of someone who's not ready for a relationship is someone who's afraid of commitment, someone who maybe even goes through all the motions of a relationship, sleeping over, inviting your date to meet your parents, or sharing high levels of emotional intimacy before deciding you aren't up to it. If this sounds like you may be someone with an avoidant attachment style who associates closeness and intimacy with risk and danger. It may feel like committing to a person or a relationship means you or someone else will inevitably get hurt. Alternatively, maybe you're someone who's been in a toxic relationship or relationships or been cheated on in the past, and you aren't sure whether you want to risk that again. There's nothing wrong with wanting to work on your attachment issues or relationship history in therapy, but it also remains true that we are both hurt in connection and heal in connection. This is really important. I want you to take that in. It is important to take in that we are both hurt in connection and we heal in connection. Therapy and personal work can go a long way, but there will likely not be a point where you are entirely over these fears. All relationships contain the risk of hurt and pain, or of being betrayed by someone you care about. At some point, all of us must decide if these are acceptable risks or not. Are you waiting to be healed? Sometimes we're not sure we're ready for a relationship because we feel like there's still something wrong with us. Maybe we think we need to fix our attachment issues or go to more therapy. Maybe we think we need a better job, to lose weight, or to figure out our gender before we go back on the market. Often we imagine there's some more finished, complete version of ourselves in the future, the healed version, so to speak. And we'd rather that potential dates meet that person than the messy, confused, imperfect version of ourselves we know, which the reality is all through life there are times we're confused. We could really be in evolved state. We've done a lot of work, but maybe, imperfection is something we have for the rest of our lives. In reality, that perfect healed version of ourselves is an illusion. Not because it's not possible to get better or improve yourself, but because that process is constant and unending. There will always be something to work on about yourself or your life, and you're perfectly capable and deserving of being in a loving relationship while you do so. I know I talk with many folks that have worked with me in varying ways, and it's known that I've been in therapy since I was age 5, and I will be in therapy the rest of my life. And that's me on the couch. And then I'm in the chair for, over 25 years. And I'm still working on myself. I still have blind spots. I still have vulnerabilities. I still have insecurities. It's an ongoing process, an ongoing evolution. So keep that in mind. Are you able to be happy when single? If you're single and looking for a new relationship, let yourself slow down and notice whether what you're feeling is excitement and openness to something new, or anxiety, insecurity, or panic about being alone. Paradoxically, the times when we feel most ready for a relationship are sometimes when we most need to pump the brakes. If you're finding it challenging or painful to be single, if it's making you obsess over your self-worth, you find the loneliness excruciating, or if you feel like you have no purpose or no one else to rely on in your life without a partner, a relationship may not be what's best for you right now. Not necessarily because you're not ready, but because you may be relying on romantic relationships in a way that puts both you and your relationships at a disadvantage. When you need a relationship to feel good, it's hard to relate to your relationship or your partner authentically. It's not necessarily true that if you can't love yourself, you can't love anybody else. But it is true that your relationships will be better off if you don't need them to be happy. And one more personal share is that I realized that during my periods of singlehood, when I got to a point where I was fine being single indefinitely and I didn't need to be in a relationship, it was the most energizing, exciting, freeing realization that I'd ever come to. Because me choosing to be in relationship with somebody was totally then a choice. It wasn't out of desperation. It wasn't out of loneliness. It wasn't because I needed somebody to complete me. It was because I was intentionally wanting something, knowing that I myself could be on my own. I didn't need another person to be a partner with me. And there's something so, it's just you sit in your own strength, confidence, and the person you end up with really appreciates that too, because they know you're there not because you need them for any other reason other than you love them and you want to show up for them 100%, and you can be imperfect and messy together. So, yeah, those are my thoughts for today. I'll see y'all next week. Kisses, hugs, see you then.